Damon Lee leaned back in his chair, his eyes fixed on the slowly dimming twilight outside his office window. The coastal city of Seattle bathed in a soft orange hue, but inside the precinct, the atmosphere was tense. Damon's mind, however, wasn't on the day's cases. Instead, it was consumed by a nagging, unsettling feeling that had been growing for weeks. His wife, Emma, had been distant lately, her demeanor changing subtly but noticeably. Damon's instincts, honed over years of police work, were prickling with unease. The small details he once brushed off as nothing more than stress-related quirks were now starting to form a disturbing pattern. It had all started a month ago when Emma began working late more often. At first, Damon had attributed it to her teaching responsibilities and grading papers, but the frequency of her absences had increased. Then came the unexplained phone calls and text messages she would quickly hide when he entered the room. Damon tried to ignore it, chalking it up to his own insecurities. Yet the small inconsistencies began to accumulate. He recalled a conversation from the previous week, one that had seemed innocuous at the time, but now felt laden with suspicion. "Emma, I'll be late tonight. There's a parent-teacher meeting that's running longer than expected." "Damon, you've mentioned that before. Is everything okay at school?" "Emma, oh, just the usual." Some parents like to discuss their kids' grades endlessly. Emma's forced cheerfulness had struck Damon as odd. And then there was the time he had come home to find Emma's car missing, but returned to find her exhausted and flustered, saying she'd had to run some errands. Damon's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of his office door creaking open. His partner, Detective Sarah Collins, walked in, her face reflecting the same concerns he had been grappling with. "Sarah." "Hey, Damon. You look like you've been brooding. Everything all right at home?" "Damon. It's Emma. She's been acting strange lately. More than usual." "I don't know, Sarah. I feel like I'm missing something." Sarah. "What kind of strange? More than just the usual 'I'm busy' excuses." Damon. "Yeah, there's this subtle shift in her behavior. Like she's hiding something. I know it sounds paranoid, but the changes are just too pronounced to ignore." Sarah. "Have you tried talking to her about it?" Damon. "I've asked, but she brushes it off. And when I try to probe, she gets defensive. It's like she's building a wall." Sarah studied Damon's face, her own expression serious. She'd known him long enough to recognize the frustration and vulnerability hidden behind his tough exterior. Sarah. "Look, I can't promise anything, but if you need help, I'm here. Maybe it's time to do some digging on your own. See if you can find anything concrete." Damon nodded, the weight of the situation settling deeper into his shoulders. That night, Damon couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. He sat at the kitchen table, the dim light casting long shadows on the walls. Emma had left for what she claimed was a late-night meeting with a colleague. He was alone with his thoughts, and the quiet hum of the refrigerator, a soundtrack to his growing unease. He flipped through Emma's calendar, which had always been meticulously organized. Lately, though, it was full of unexplained notations, meetings with names he didn't recognize and appointments that seemed vague and unaccounted for. A suspicious entry caught his eye. Mark Johnson, 7 p.m. The name meant nothing to him initially, but he remembered it from a recent dinner party where Emma had spoken about a new friend who was a corporate lawyer. As Damon's suspicion grew, he decided to take a closer look at Emma's recent work correspondence. He accessed her email account, noting the peculiar tone of certain exchanges and the frequency of communications with a Mark J. The pieces of the puzzle were slowly falling into place, though they painted a picture he wasn't ready to confront yet. His phone buzzed, jolting him from his thoughts. It was a text from Sarah, who had been doing some preliminary research at his request. "Sarah? Text. Just ran some checks. Mark Johnson is a corporate lawyer with a reputation for being aggressive in family law cases. Might want to look into why he's involved with Emma." Damon's heart raced as he read the message. The realization that Mark Johnson could be more than just a casual acquaintance was chilling. He had seen how Mark had taken an interest in Emma at their last social gathering. His seemingly innocent questions about their family and life now felt ominously calculated. Damon was at a crossroads. The small details, Emma's unexplained absences, her evasive responses, Mark Johnson's suspicious involvement were now painting a disturbing picture. As he prepared for another restless night, he knew he was on the brink of uncovering something that could change everything. The growing seeds of distrust were about to burst into a full-blown revelation. As the clock ticked towards midnight, Damon realized that the coming days would require more than just vigilance. They would demand courage as he delved deeper into the shadows of betrayal and deception that had begun to unravel his once stable life. Damon Lee's footsteps echoed through the empty hallways of the precinct as he made his way to the break room. The normally comforting hum of office activity felt oddly distant today. His mind was preoccupied with the unraveling threads of his personal life. Every detail, every unspoken word seemed to be part of a larger, unsettling narrative he was desperately trying to piece together. The previous night had been restless. Damon had spent hours combing through Emma's emails, but the more he uncovered, the more questions arose. The emails with Mark Johnson were innocuous at first glance, discussions about schedules, plans for meetings. Yet, something about the tone and frequency felt wrong. There was a casual familiarity, a level of intimacy that went beyond mere professional correspondence. He sighed, reaching the break room and grabbing a cup of coffee. As he poured the dark liquid into his mug, he was joined by Sarah Collins, who seemed to be equally tired and preoccupied. Sarah: "Morning, Damon. You look like you didn't get much sleep." Damon: "Yeah, you could say that. I've been going through Emma's emails. There's something off about her communications with Mark Johnson." Sarah: "What did you find?" Damon: "Just a lot of back and forth about meetings and schedules. But it's the way they communicate. It feels too personal. And there's this one email where she talks about us meeting up for dinner after a late night at school." Sarah raised an eyebrow, her concern evident. Sarah: "Dinner? That does sound unusual. Have you confronted Emma about it?" Damon: "I tried, but she just shut me down. Said it's all work-related. I don't know, Sarah. I'm starting to think there's more going on." Sarah nodded thoughtfully, sipping her coffee. Sarah: "Well, you're not alone in this. If you need any more digging done, just let me know. Sometimes a fresh set of eyes can catch things that might be missed." Damon appreciated the offer, though his gut told him that the answers he sought might be more painful than he anticipated. Later that day, Damon decided to follow Emma's routine more closely. His detective instincts were in high gear as he observed her behavior. When Emma left the house, Damon trailed her discreetly, maintaining a safe distance. His heart pounded as he watched her pull into a parking lot near a stylish restaurant. The same restaurant where he had seen Mark Johnson a few weeks earlier. Damon parked a few spaces away and waited. As the minutes ticked by, his apprehension grew. Finally, he saw Emma walk into the restaurant, followed closely by Mark. They exchanged a warm hug before being led to a table in a secluded corner. Damon's hands clenched the steering wheel, fighting a surge of anger and hurt. He considered going in, but the idea of confronting them in such a setting was overwhelming. Instead, he watched as they sat together, engrossed in conversation and laughter. The familiarity in their interactions was undeniable, and Damon's suspicions were becoming more concrete by the minute. That evening, back at home, Damon confronted Emma. The house was quiet, save for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the living room. Emma had returned from her dinner, and Damon's heart was heavy as he approached her in the kitchen. "Damon, we need to talk." Emma looked up from the dishes, her face guarded. "Emma, about what, Damon?" "About you and Mark Johnson. I saw you together tonight." Emma's expression shifted from confusion to defensiveness. "Emma, I don't know what you're talking about." Damon: "Don't lie to me, Emma. I saw you both at the restaurant, and it wasn't just a casual meeting. There's something going on, and I need to know what it is." Emma's silence was the loudest response. She put down the dish she was holding and faced him, her eyes betraying a flicker of guilt. "Emma, Damon, it's not what you think. Mark and I are. We're just friends." Damon: "Just friends? I saw the way you interacted, the way you talked. There's more to this, isn't there?" Emma's face hardened as she crossed her arms. "Emma, I don't owe you an explanation. If you have a problem, maybe you should look at yourself instead of accusing me." Damon's frustration mounted, but he kept his voice steady. Damon, I'm not accusing you without reason. I've seen the changes in you. The secretive behavior. It all adds up. Emma's eyes flashed with anger, but she remained silent. The tension in the room was palpable, each moment stretching into an uncomfortable silence. Unable to get answers from Emma, Damon turned to Sarah for support. The next day, he met her at a small cafe near the precinct. Sarah, how did it go last night? Damon, not well. Emma's denying everything, but I can't shake the feeling that there's a lot more to it. Sarah, have you considered that there might be more than just an affair? Sometimes people hide behind one lie to cover up something bigger. Damon, I'm starting to think that too. I need to know what Mark's role in all this really is. Sarah, all right, I'll see what I can dig up on Mark Johnson. But be careful, Damon. The deeper you dig, the more likely you are to find things that you might not be ready for. Damon nodded, feeling the weight of the situation press down on him. As he left the cafe, he knew that the path ahead would be fraught with emotional turmoil and potentially devastating revelations. The secrets and lies were just beginning to unravel, and Damon was determined to uncover the truth, no matter where it led. Damon Lee was up before dawn, his mind racing with the unsettling discoveries he'd made. Emma's evasive behavior and her apparent relationship with Mark Johnson had stirred a whirlwind of doubt and suspicion. He was convinced that the surface signs he had observed were only the beginning. Where there was smoke, there had to be fire. Today, Damon was determined to gather concrete evidence. He had contacted Sarah Collins the previous night, and she had promised to help him dig deeper into Mark Johnson's background. Meanwhile, Damon planned to conduct his own surveillance, hoping to catch Emma in a moment that might reveal more about her connection to Mark and potentially uncover another layer to the deceit. As the city stirred awake, Damon prepared his surveillance equipment, cameras, a voice recorder, and a small notebook. He had arranged for Sarah to help with research, but he knew that seeing things firsthand would give him a clearer picture. Emma had claimed that her late nights were due to work, but Damon intended to verify every detail. Damon's first stop was Emma's workplace. He arrived early, parking his car a few blocks away to avoid drawing attention. He watched as teachers and staff filtered into the school. Emma arrived punctually as usual. Damon's eyes were trained on her, noting every interaction and gesture. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary at first glance. Then, as the morning progressed, Damon's attention was drawn to a man in a well-tailored suit. Mark Johnson. He seemed to be engaged in a conversation with Emma outside the school's main entrance. Damon's heart quickened. He pulled out his camera and began documenting the scene. The conversation was animated, punctuated by frequent laughter and subtle touches that betrayed a closeness beyond mere professionalism. As the pair parted ways, Damon followed discreetly, capturing the moments when they exchanged a lingering glance. Emma headed towards her car, and Damon made a mental note of her destination. It was a pattern he had seen before, vague errands that always seemed to end with her returning home looking exhausted and flustered. Later that afternoon, Damon met Sarah at a small cafe near the precinct. She was already seated, flipping through a stack of documents. Her expression was serious, underscoring the gravity of their investigation. Sarah, I've managed to dig up some information on Mark Johnson. Seems like he's more involved with Emma than you initially thought. Damon, what did you find? Sarah, Mark's been involved in several high-profile family law cases, and there are rumors about him having questionable relationships with clients. I also got a hold of some medical records. His name pops up frequently with women seeking confidential consultations. Damon, that's disturbing. It fits with what I saw earlier. Emma and Mark were definitely more than just colleagues. Sarah handed Damon a folder containing the documents she had gathered. Damon scanned through them, his mind racing with implications. Sarah, we need to be careful, Damon. If Emma and Mark are having an affair, and it's affecting your custody situation, we'll need solid evidence. Anything we can use in court or to confront them directly. Damon, I know. I've been following Emma's movements. Today, I saw them together, and it's clear there's something serious going on. Sarah, good. Keep documenting everything. And let me know if you find anything else. I'll continue digging into Mark's background. The more we know, the stronger our case will be. Damon nodded, feeling a mixture of determination and dread. The evidence was piling up, but each new piece only made the reality of the situation more painful. That evening, Damon reviewed the footage he had captured. He meticulously noted the times, dates, and interactions. The sight of Emma and Mark's intimate conversation replayed in his mind, confirming his worst fears. The pieces of the puzzle were aligning, painting a picture of betrayal that was both heartbreaking and infuriating. As he prepared to confront Emma, Damon felt a surge of resolve. He had gathered enough evidence to challenge her and Mark, but he knew that the confrontation would be emotionally charged. It wasn't just about proving infidelity, it was about safeguarding his rights as a father and reclaiming his life from the shadows of deceit. Emma arrived home late, as usual, her demeanor showing signs of fatigue. Damon had prepared himself for the confrontation, and as she entered the living room, he stood with a firm but controlled presence. "Damon, Emma, we need to talk." Emma looked up, her face masking surprise with a hint of apprehension. "Emma? About what now?" "Damon, I have evidence of your relationship with Mark Johnson. I saw you two together, and I've been gathering information about his involvement in your life. It's clear that there's more going on than just a professional connection." Emma's face drained of color as the gravity of the situation hit her. Her composure faltered, and she took a deep breath. "Emma? Damon, it's not what you think. Mark and I..." "Damon, I saw you. The way you interact, the secrecy. I have proof, Emma. I need to know the truth now." Emma's shoulders slumped, and she sighed deeply. Her eyes met Damon's, a mix of guilt and resignation evident in her expression. "Emma, all right, I'll explain. But this isn't just about me and Mark. There are things you don't know. Things that have been complicated." Damon's heart sank as he prepared for the full extent of the revelation. He knew that the road ahead would be fraught with emotional turmoil, but he was determined to face the truth and fight for what mattered most, his daughter and his own sense of integrity. Damon Lee's days had become a whirlwind of evidence gathering, emotional turmoil, and mounting tension. His confrontation with Emma had only scratched the surface of the treacherous web of deceit she had woven. As he dug deeper, the personal and professional ramifications of his discovery became clearer. Emma's betrayal was not just a personal wound, but a threat to his career and custody of their daughter. The stakes were sky high, and every move he made felt like a step in a high-stakes game of chess. In the midst of his investigation, Damon received an unexpected phone call from a former colleague, Mike Sullivan. Mike had left the force years ago, but had maintained a somewhat distant relationship with Damon. Their connection had been strained by time and professional differences, but Mike had reached out with a tip that could change everything. "Mike, on the phone. Damon, I heard about your situation. I know it's been a while, but I've got some information that might help you." "Damon? Mike? What are you talking about?" "Mike, I've been following some rumors around town. People are talking about Mark Johnson and his underhanded dealings. I've got contacts who can verify some things about him and his shady practices. Thought you might be interested." Damon's heart raced. The information could provide the leverage he needed to expose the full extent of Emma and Mark's deception. "Damon, I could use any help I can get. Let's meet and discuss this." They agreed to meet at a quiet diner that evening. As Damon arrived, he found Mike already seated in a booth, a serious expression on his face. He handed Damon a folder filled with documents and photographs. "Mike, these are some of the things I've dug up. Mark's financial transactions, some questionable client relationships, and a few insider accounts of his unethical behavior. This should help strengthen your case." Damon: "Thanks, Mike. I didn't expect this, but it's exactly what I needed." Mike: "Just remember, the deeper you dig, the more you might uncover. Be careful. This could get messy." Damon nodded, taking the folder with a newfound sense of purpose. He now had a clearer path to exposing the betrayal and seeking justice. Back home, Damon reviewed the new evidence, his resolve hardening. He decided it was time for a final confrontation with Emma and Mark. The mounting pressure and betrayal had pushed him to his limits, and he was ready to take decisive action. That night, Damon set up a meeting at their house, ensuring that both Emma and Mark would be present. Emma arrived first, her face a mixture of anxiety and defiance. Mark showed up shortly after, his demeanor composed but tense. The living room felt charged with an electric tension. "Damon, thank you for coming. We need to talk." Emma and Mark exchanged uneasy glances as they took their seats. Damon paced for a moment before turning to face them, holding up the folder Mike had given him. "Damon, I've gathered substantial evidence about your affair and Mark's unethical practices. The financial records, the emails, everything. You've been hiding behind lies and deceit." Emma's face paled as she looked at the documents in shock. Mark's face hardened and he stood up abruptly. "Mark, this is absurd. You're just trying to slander my name." "Damon, it's not slander, Mark. It's the truth. Your manipulative schemes have been exposed. And Emma, you've been complicit in this deception." Emma's eyes filled with tears and her composure finally broke. She sank into a chair, her shoulders shaking with emotion. "Emma, Damon, I'm sorry. I never meant for it to come to this. I was... Damon. You were what? Misguided? The damage is done, Emma. The trust is shattered." Emma's voice quivered as she struggled to explain. "Emma, I thought I was doing what was best for us. I didn't see how far we'd go. Damon. It's too late for excuses. The impact on our family, on our daughter, it's irreparable." Emma's breakdown was painful to witness, but Damon felt a grim satisfaction in the confrontation. The truth was out, and the emotional weight of their actions was evident. The next day, Damon met with his attorney to discuss the legal implications of the revelations. With the evidence collected and the exposure of Emma and Mark's deceit, he felt a renewed sense of determination. The fight for custody would be fierce, but Damon was prepared to face it head-on. As he walked out of the attorney's office, Damon received another call, this time from Sarah Collins. "Sarah. Damon, I heard about the confrontation. I just wanted to say that I'm here for you. If you need anything else or further assistance with the case, don't hesitate to reach out." Damon. "Thank you, Sarah. Your support means a lot right now." Sarah. "We'll get through this. You've done the hard part by uncovering the truth. Now it's about fighting for what's right." Damon ended the call feeling a glimmer of hope amidst the chaos. The road ahead was still fraught with challenges, but the revelation of Emma and Mark's deceit had set the stage for a resolution. The emotional fallout and professional battles were just beginning, but Damon was ready to confront whatever came next with clarity and resolve. The courtroom was buzzing with the murmurs of spectators and the clinking of legal documents as Damon Lee prepared for the final leg of his battle. The weight of the past months had been immense. Betrayal, deceit, and personal and professional challenges had tested him to his limits. Yet, amidst the chaos, Damon had pieced together a mosaic of truth from small, seemingly insignificant details that had led to a larger revelation. Damon had spent countless hours reviewing evidence, connecting dots, and gathering support. The emails, financial records, and witness testimonies had formed a clear picture of Emma and Mark's deceit. Now, with the final hearing upon him, he felt a mix of nervous anticipation and steely resolve. As Damon entered the courtroom, he was greeted by Sarah Collins, who had become a trusted ally throughout the ordeal. Her presence was a comforting reminder that he wasn't alone in this fight. "Sarah, you've got this, Damon. The evidence speaks for itself." "Damon, I hope so. This is the moment we've been working towards. I just want to clear my name and protect my daughter." Sarah gave him a reassuring nod as he took his seat at the defense table. Emma and Mark were seated across the room, their expressions a mix of defiance and anxiety. The hearing began with Damon's attorney presenting the case. The evidence was overwhelming. Detailed records, testimonies from witnesses, and the damning emails between Emma and Mark laid bare the extent of their deception. The courtroom's atmosphere grew tense as the facts emerged, each revelation adding weight to the case against them. Damon took a deep breath as he watched Emma's reaction. Her once confident demeanor had crumbled. The courtroom's exposure of their affair and the impact it had on his career and custody of their daughter was taking its toll. Emma's tears were a stark contrast to the confident facade she had maintained throughout the proceedings. Emma, to Damon, I didn't think it would come to this. I was wrong. Damon, it didn't have to be this way. You made choices that hurt everyone. Emma's voice trembled as she struggled to find words. The reality of her actions and their consequences was sinking in, and the public exposure was a heavy blow. The final ruling was announced. Damon's name was cleared, and he was granted full custody of their daughter. The courtroom erupted in a mixture of applause and murmurs. Damon felt a wave of relief and triumph wash over him. The battle had been long and arduous, but he had emerged victorious. As he left the courthouse, he was met by his daughter, Emily, who ran to him with open arms. The joy and relief in her eyes were a balm to Damon's soul. Emily, Daddy, is everything going to be okay now? Damon, yes, sweetheart. Everything is going to be just fine. In the weeks following the hearing, Damon began to rebuild his life. The support from family and friends had been instrumental in navigating the tumultuous period. Damon's relationship with Sarah had grown stronger, and their bond had developed into something deeper. One evening, Damon and Sarah met for dinner at a cozy restaurant overlooking the waterfront. The ambience was calm, and the gentle sound of waves provided a soothing backdrop. Sarah, I'm glad we're finally able to relax. It feels like a lifetime since we started this journey. Damon, I couldn't have done it without you. Your support made all the difference. Sarah's eyes sparkled with warmth as she reached across the table to hold Damon's hand. Sarah, we've been through a lot together. I'm just glad we're on the other side of it now. As they shared a quiet moment, Damon realized how much Sarah had come to mean to him. Her unwavering support and understanding had been a guiding light through the darkness. Weeks turned into months, and life began to settle into a new rhythm. Damon's career was back on track, and his relationship with Emily was stronger than ever. The public scandal had faded into the background, but the lessons learned and the growth achieved were lasting. One sunny afternoon, Damon took Emily to the park. As they played together, Damon reflected on the journey he had been through. The personal and professional challenges had been significant, but they had led to unexpected joys and new beginnings. Later that evening, Damon and Sarah attended a small gathering with close friends and family. The atmosphere was celebratory, filled with laughter and shared stories. Damon looked around, feeling a deep sense of contentment and gratitude. As the night drew to a close, Damon took Sarah's hand and led her to a quiet corner of the garden. Damon, there's something I've been wanting to ask you. Sarah looked at him with curiosity and affection. Damon, Sarah, these past months have shown me how much you mean to me. Through everything, you've been my rock. Will you marry me? Sarah's eyes welled up with tears of joy as she nodded. Sarah, yes, Damon, I would love to. They embraced, their hearts full of hope and promise. The road to this moment had been fraught with obstacles, but it had led them to a place of renewal and happiness. As Damon looked out over the garden, illuminated by soft lights and the glow of a new beginning, he felt a profound sense of closure. The journey had been painful, but it had paved the way for a new chapter in his life. One filled with love, support, and a fresh start. The perfect ending was not just about overcoming the past, but embracing a future filled with possibility and joy.